Moritz, do you know the feeling when you try to fall asleep at night, but you just like keep on thinking about different issues that are currently we're facing? For example, the energy crisis.
Yes, yes, I really know that. And also the coldness in my apartment is keeping me up at night. But there's also another thing I'm worried about, the mental health issues beyond students.
Yes, that has been an extreme topic and a hot potato in my previous studies in education.
But hey, what about data harvesting? How could we make it more transparent?
I don't have the answers at the moment, but I'm hoping that we will hear them later today.
Reframe, from tensions to transitions, is an event to showcase the project of 11 teams from the IDBM Challenge. During the IDBM Challenge course, students are challenged to identify, analyze, and create concepts and solutions for ill-defined problems.
Let's all express our warm welcome to the YouTube audience as well. So wave to your moms and dads watching the live stream.
The event will consist of 3 blocks of pitches. Each pitch going to be 5 minutes. We also hear 2 inspiring keynotes from Elina Honko and Juho Makkunen. After the first block of pitches, we're going to have a short break where you can enjoy the snacks over there. We have to have a second break later during the event. Hey Moritz, how does the Q&A work?
So there will be time for questions after every keynote and also after every block of pitches. So after all all 3 teams or 4 teams have had their pitches. It works like this, that you scan the QR code you see now on the screens. Do you see it? Yeah, probably. And so scan the QR code, you can do it now maybe. And then during the pitches, you can listen but also ask your questions on the Padlet, which you see if you scan the QR code. You can also vote for the for the questions others were giving. And then we will ask the questions to the speakers for you. You can do it, I don't see any phones here, you can do it right now and scan the QR code also on the tables.
Next off, we will have a keynote from Elina Holko, followed by a short Q&A session. If you have any questions to Elina, please write them to the Padlet during her keynote. Elina works at the Lifeline Ventures as a CFO, and before joining Lifeline, she worked at the Finnish Climate Fund. At Lifeline Ventures, Elina is responsible for group finance operations and ESG topics and works closely with founders to solve various business and finance issues. Today, Elina will talk about startups tackling the climate change. Please give a big hand to Elina Holko.
Thank you for the introduction. Good to be here. Okay, now it works. So my name is Elina Holko. I work at Lifeline Ventures as a CFO. And it's been a while since this kind of event last took place, so quite excited to be here on stage after the pandemics and all. I will start by just briefly telling a little bit about my background. So I have also studied at Aalto University. Back then it was called Helsinki School of Economics. I studied also economics, and I have also done this SEMS Master in International Management at Group HEC Paris. After graduating, I started at a Finnish management consultancy called August Associates. I worked there as a management consultant and a project manager for approximately 10 years, working with big Finnish corporates as well as private equity-owned portfolio companies with different business development strategy, reporting development projects. And then after 10 years, I wanted to see how it is to develop these things inside of a big company. So I started to work at HK Scan as project manager in a big customer profitability management and product costing program, group-wide program, and which was quite interesting to see how it works in a big corporation. After that, there was some changes in the management and strategy, so I wanted to do something else, and my friend was working at the Finnish Climate Fund. Back then it was called VAKE, and I joined there as a finance manager, and then for the last year there I was also, I was mainly preparing for the investment decisions to the board of the Finnish Climate Fund. But then I got a call from a headhunter and was asked to be part of the recruitment process for Lifeline Ventures. And of course, that back then I thought that this is the possibility or opportunity you cannot just miss. So I started there last January, and as was mentioned in the introduction, I'm responsible for all the finance matters, investor relations, and fund administration, but also I like to spar with the companies, our startups, relating different topics. And since I have the background in the Finnish Climate Fund, I have also been involved in some of the cases cases where the startups are really tackling the climate change. Haven't yet done any investments, but looked at a handful of companies this far. And I have 2 kids, and I like to play golf, and otherwise also do a lot of sports. But what is Lifeline Ventures? We aim to be the early investor in every top Finnish startup. So we have been around for more than 10 years now. I think most of you know companies like Wolt and Swappy and Smartly or Aura, for example. So those are our kind of biggest portfolio companies by the date. But we do the investments in the very early stage. So when the company, for example, Aura was like a pitch deck back then when we invested in it. So this is typically the stage when we come in, so in the angel or seed phase. So the first investment ticket that we make is from 100,000 to a couple of million euros. And then we of course continue investing, doing follow-on investments if the company is on a growth track. And we have since today invested in more than 100 companies already, and we have almost 800 million euros assets under management. Our founders are entrepreneurs by themselves, so they know how it is to found a company. And we are currently investing from our 4th fund. What we then look at when we are evaluating an investment, we want to be partners with founders and co-investors, so we are really active owners. We typically take a board seat and actively influence the company. We look for companies that have some kind of unfair competitive advantage or a capability to build that in some specific area where they can become a category leader. And it means that the underlying market needs to have some kind of unlimited characteristics, so it is possible that it grows really a lot. What we look at then in the team, we look at there are a founder team where at least one person can have a C-level role from the very beginning until the exit, because it's a quite different thing to be a CEO or any C-level role in a startup, in an early startup, or in a company that employs hundreds of people, for example. But we look for that capability to grow with the company. And in theory, each seed investment that we make should be able to return the whole fund. So that is what we look for, and of course that is not how it goes, but it is typically so that we have a handful of those exceptional companies and then a lot more of those that then either return something or nothing. This is our team at the moment. So as mentioned, so Timo and Petteri, they are used to be entrepreneurs themselves. Juha has a long background in the private equity side, and Sonia is then our admin manager. But then what is interesting, what we have started this year, is that we have this entrepreneur in residence program. So we have Miika, Mona and Lasse, brilliant young people who are planning to found their own company. So they have been working with our portfolio companies and at the same time developing their own business idea, and now they are about to start their own company. And this has been extremely valuable for us because we have had these people at our office, and they bring their network, and we have even through that network we have certain leads that we are currently looking as an investment. So this is something that we will continue and aim for having all the time 2 to 3 people around in this entrepreneur in residence role. So if you are in that, considering something like that in the future, so keep us in mind. But what I wanted to talk about is that how those startups can really tackle climate change. This is an example, a list of examples from our portfolio today. So even though you could imagine that we have like a lot of SaaS companies, which are quite easy in a way of how they scale up, but we have also many companies that are really in the core of solving these climate issues. For example, Carboculture, they are carbonizing biomass waste into biocarbon, so that is the way that the carbon is no longer released into the air. Then Muke is a marketplace for pre-owned design furniture, which of course then reduces the need to buy new furniture. And then B2X solution produce green hydrogen, and that is also important when we have a lot of renewable energy sources that are not stable. So you have wind power when it's windy, but you need to store the energy somewhere, because when it's not windy, you cannot utilize that. And hydrogen is one solution for that issue. Then we have Solar Foods, which is a company that is producing protein from air, so not needing any agriculture in order to produce protein. And Sulapak is then producing these packaging materials without any plastic, and it's also fully biodegradable. And Swappy is probably a company that you probably know, selling the used iPhones. So why then startups are important? So the whole problem about climate change is so huge that it's not enough if we have one solution to that. So we need to have different solutions in all aspects of the kind of modern living. For example, in energy, transportation, food, consumption and construction. And we know there are solutions, but not all of them are commercialized, and some are even non-existing at the moment. And startups are often quite fast in making those changes and growing and commercializing the products. If you compare to, for example, more stable corporates, they are often busy with their day-to-day business, and they have development resources, but they are usually focused on making some incremental changes to the processes and not necessarily building something completely new. Then you could argue that it's enough that there's scientific solutions available, but you still need to have companies that then commercialize those solutions and bring them to the markets. And the timing is very good at the moment. So funding to startups in Finland has increased some tenfold in the last 10 years. And I think, or we believe that the same development will continue for the next 10 years as well. And also government or public funding is well available, especially for any climate related startups. you can have funding from Business Finland or the Finnish Climate Fund and from the EU as well, if you have a good solution and a good company. But these were some ideas on the why it is important to think about these questions and build companies around them. So now I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Yes, we have few questions for you. So it's always important to think about how do you measure stuff when you try to define success. So how do you measure progress in a climate tech startup? What sort of like KPIs are used to understand their success?
It's hard to say say one or two certain KPIs. It really boils down to the kind of fact that what they are about to do. So for example, well, one key thing about the climate startups is that since they are typically very capital intensive, so you need to build a factory or something like really some hardware, not only like software. So then you need to have a team that is capable of collecting funding from different sources. So the capability to get funding is something that we look for, and then of course you can then measure that whether they have been able to do that or not. And then it's about like if it's Solar Foods and they are building a factory, so how the process is going, how they have been progressing, what kind of issues they've had, and how they have solved them.
Thank you, Elina. Yeah, very many inspiring business ideas, I would say. But also we have another question is, do you have any tips for students who are maybe interested in working in climate investing? Which like directions to choose?
You mean in studies or summer jobs or?
Maybe both, yeah.
Yeah. Well, well, myself, I have studied business, so of course what we look for in the companies is that at least when they're building something, it would be good that they have technology knowledge, so through the studies, for example. And in terms of any company, it's important you have a diverse selection of knowledge in the team. And for example, this is a very good example that what you have here. So you are working with people from different backgrounds. That is excellent experience for that kind of like working in a startup, because usually it's not enough if you have a copy of yourself working alongside with you. You need to have some different knowledge. But I would kind of point at technological knowledge as one thing, and kind of learning to know about different technologies around climate change.
Thank you. That's super interesting. And yeah, maybe we'll see a lot of ideas now in the upcoming presentations. We of course like happy to see your future and to have your feedback about them and what you maybe think about them.
Okay,
great.
Sounds good.
Thanks for your presentation.
Let's give a big hand to Elina Holkko.
Thank you.
Yeah, now it's time for our first presentation, and the first team will be, or the first presenters will be Laura, Tommy, and Otto. Yeah, they will talking about their solution how to make TikToks safer. Have a round of applause for them. Thank you.
Hey, is this the playground you want to drop your kids at? The traditional playgrounds are empty, while the unknown, dangerous virtual playground is full. How does this affect our children?
Well, most of the parents don't even know what their children do online. On average, they spend over 2 hours a day on social media, and attention rates has decreased over 30%. Disturbingly, over 90% of children has also been contacted by strange adults online.
That does sound bad.
But it's not all bad, as social media can connect children with new friends, learn new skills, and even use children's creativity throughout TikTok dances, for example.
But how could we make social media safer for children?
Otto, that is an excellent question, and therefore we conducted some research on the different stakeholders. First of all, we have the children. From our research, we found out that most children believe what they see online to be true. And unfortunately, most had also witnessed and seen inappropriate material that they did not feel confident enough to discuss with a safe adult. Do we really want to put the responsibility on the children?
Yeah, children should be let be children. But could the platforms do something about it?
Well, yes, they could, but historically they have been quite poor at this. Can we really trust someone whose business is to make money out of addiction?
That is true. What about the government? Could they regulate it somehow?
Well, they could, and they have tried, for example, China and Italy, but they would need to be demanded more from these platforms and regulate the use more efficiently. Based on research that we made, children will also find this stuff anyway later and get around these restrictions.
Well, why don't they just teach it in schools then?
It could be taught even more in schools as media education. However, that would require dramatic and radical changes to the current curriculum, as at the moment there is no resources or time, and teachers do not know what is happening in the modern social media.
So the solution is the parents are the only one left.
Yes, at the end of the day, the parents are responsible. They decide when they give their children mobile devices, if there are restrictions, or if age limits are followed. However, again, we have the same problem. Parents do not know what is happening on their children's phones.
Yeah, so actually the solution is to educate the parents, but how can we do that?
Fabulous. That is the solution. We create an association that brings the information to the parents through an online platform.
Welcome to Virtual Playground. Virtual Playground is an online platform that provides information about the software solutions that children are using, as well as news on trending topics. It also provides visibility, transparency, and tools for the parents on how to discuss social media usage with the children. And this is something it could look like.
Yes. And on the right-hand side, you can see our beautiful flyer that will be distributed to the parents through school, for example, in parent-teacher interviews. This way, the information will reach the parents through a trustworthy source, and hopefully we'll have plenty of parents visiting this virtual playground.
That does sound good.
I know. And therefore, we could take a little look in the future. We'd hope to partner up with different partners, trustworthy and reliable ones. And for example, one partner could be the Finnish National Agency for Education. And our idea, we'd hope one day to take global. To conclude, our idea is a platform easily accessible for parents without burdening the teachers.
Please join Virtual Playground and check out our website here from the QR code on the screen. And let's keep our children safe.
I'm sold.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura, Tommi, and Otto. The second team will touch upon the same topic, but from a slightly different angle. Anna and Nu leads us back to the topic of social media usage among kids and teens. Let's give a round of applause to Anna and Nu.
Hello everyone, we're at Group 1 and our presenting topic today is cultivating social media literacy among young people. We started out with filter bubble, so what filter bubble is, Eli Persa is the one who coined the term in 2011, and he defined this echo chamber as the personal and unique universe of information created by algorithms that you live in online. And how it can be a concern. Firstly, as a result of this algorithmic filtering, users never see the other side of an argument, so that the reality can be distorted. Secondly, the personalization of the web can diminish viewpoint diversity and gradually isolate users into their own filter bubble. And lastly, and the most important thing is that this filtering mechanism is seemingly invisible to numerous digital users, and not many people are aware of that. Acknowledging the situation, my colleagues and I moved upstream to find out the root cause of social media filter bubble, that is, lack of literacies. And from this point, we shifted our focus on raising awareness and education about social media literacy among participants. And the question here is, how might we can help young social media users to develop critical literacies to resist to potential threats, the filter bubble on digital platforms? Again, education is crucial here. And why we choose young people like kids and teens as our focus group? Because according to research and our observation, kids and teens are more susceptible to social media negativities and complexities created by filter bubble than any other group because of their ignorance due to age. Next, ethnography is our chosen method to go to field, and Reddit is our bouncing point to get the first review of the topic. And one of the very first comments that we found aligned with our research is that people say it's not a fault of the platform. It's about the lack of education that cannot promote a safer usage of social media. And based on that information, we continue the field work by interviewing parents, teachers, preteens, and teens.
Yes, so in order to dive deeper to this topic, we conducted these interviews. And based on these interviews, here are our insights. One interesting thing was that many of the children thought that it's their own responsibility to behave well on social media, which is kind of tricky. But then again, parents and teachers saw that it's very beneficial to start teaching about social media and the usage of social media already in the first years of school or even earlier in daycare. So based on these interviews and the research that we did, we came up with a solution. And in our solution, we translated the thoughts, the feelings, and the concerns of the interviewees into an educational workshop format. So here, as you can see, we have a cohesive concept that is in two parts that are partially overlapping. So one part is for educating the teachers, and the other one is for educating the kids. So in the first part, that is for the teachers, we would teach about how to include social media in their own classes. And the second one has to do with the research that we did about social media. So it is true that social media is mentioned in the Finnish school curriculum, but at the moment it's stated in a really vague way, and basically the responsibility is on the teachers how to use social media. It's for them to decide. So here we would agree on cohesive guidelines which could be followed by all the teachers who go through the workshop, and hopefully one day even the whole Finland would know about these guidelines. And on the other hand, for the kids, we would teach about cyberbullying, consent, for example, should you ask for permission to post online a picture with your friends, and stuff like that. And the part that would be taught to the both of them would be how algorithms work, how content manipulation such as deepfakes work, and of course, last but not least, filter bubbles, how they build up, what are the benefits, what are the risks, etc. And of course, we do know that in the future this could be developed, and one option would be to create this as a hub for exchange. This could work also offline in the workshops, and online on an online platform. Here we would create a safe environment for the kids to express their feelings, their thoughts, their concerns, and we would also this way take the responsibility away from the big tech companies back to the community, to the schools, to the kids. And of course, scalability is one issue, and this online platform could help make it. So we would have PDF outlets ready to be downloaded by the teachers, and they could use them in their own classes. As well as that, we would use education that is basically the workshops that have been for the teachers. Those that have gone through them would teach and pass the information to the other teachers. So it would be like peer teaching. And this is our solution. Hopefully with this, we would be able to help teachers and schools how to react faster to the ever-changing world of social media. Thank you.
Thank you.
Your Honor, thank you, Nu. Just a quick reminder, you can still use the QR codes and still post your questions in the Padlet, so we'll have our Q&A afterwards. So the next presentation will be Wilma and Emilia, and they will propose a solution to mental health among the youth. Please welcome them on stage.
Were you aware that up to 1 in 4 youths struggle with mental health issues? Yet still, less than half receive the treatment they actually need because there simply aren't enough low-threshold treatment options available. Mental health issues impact youth in increasing numbers as especially due to the workload and pressure of studies as our culture becomes more achievement-oriented. Mental health issues already cost 11 billion euros yearly in Finland alone, and the problem is only growing.
It's not surprising then that investing in mental health treatment has been estimated to pay back up to 5 times. According to experts, the best results are achieved with early interventions already at a young age, since up to 75% of mental health disorders emerge before the age of 25. The lack of resources in traditional treatments encourage us to look at alternative methods. We found evidence that more low-threshold peer-to-peer support possibilities could be beneficial in supporting the mental health of students. To confirm our belief, we contacted mental health care professionals, peer support experts, and of course, the students themselves to validate the benefits and desirability of peer-to-peer support for youth.
The students we reached, in fact, wanted more possibilities to connect with their peers in order to support their mental well-being and help relieve feelings of loneliness. From the experts, we learned that peer support is an easy first step into seeking help and supports other services and can help bridge any gaps in treatment. From our fieldwork, we identified 3 different groups of students based on their mental health status and need for support. We identified the key issues for each of these student personas and what approaches could be taken in order to tackle these issues.
The first group are students already in treatment for mental health issues. They generally feel worried about their well-being and don't get enough support from their existing relationships. The key issue is, how can we relieve their feelings of loneliness and make them feel supported even when there are gaps in their treatment? This group would benefit from more peer support possibilities during different treatments to help break the cycle of feeling isolated. At the same time, this would minimize the negative effects of any gaps or interruptions in their treatment.
The second group are the students who experience mental health issues but are not in treatment. This group might already have supportive networks but would still like more support from people with similar experiences and struggles as them. The key issue here is how can we provide low threshold support and help empower these students to seek into treatment. This group needs an easy way to find suitable treatment options and support to empower them to overcome stigma and actually seek help. By finding suitable treatment options earlier on, it helps prevent issues from piling up into more severe problems later on.
The third and last group are the students who haven't noticed any mental health issues. They aren't necessarily worried about their well-being, but they often feel overworked in their studies and lack free time. The key issue is, how can we provide social support to alleviate overachieving culture and the stress from their study workload? This group would benefit from education about self-management and chances to discuss their mental health with their peers. This could prevent developing more severe mental health issues, reducing the need to ever seek treatment.
Our vision is that all three of these student groups could be helped through an easily accessible, safe peer support platform connecting like-minded students together. A hybrid platform would allow students from anywhere to form new and meaningful relationships both online and offline with minimal social pressure. This platform would operate mostly on student activity, thus requiring less resources from mental health care professionals.
We see a chance for mental health care providers to reach more students and prevent issues from escalating by investing in a digital peer support platform. Mental health needs to be considered for everyone, as it's always existing whether any issues appear or not. This is why we want to see peer support platforms being adopted, developed, and made readily available for all students. Thank you.
Thank you, Vilma and Emilia. Such an important and timely topic. Now we have time for the last pitch of the first pitch block. So it's good time to scan the QR code and send us some questions to the first three teams. But let's welcome Juan and Carolina to the stage, and they will discuss how to break the filter bubbles and develop critical thinking skills. Please give a big hand of applause to Carolina and Juan.
Hello everyone, nice to see you're still with us. Before I begin, I'd like all of you to take a moment to think about this statement. What does it mean to you? What kind of thoughts do you have about it? These were a few of our first thoughts. Our digital feeds are optimized to our preferences, making us more likely to be constrained and polarized by filter bubbles. It has also become increasingly challenging to recognize real from fake news. The skills to process information and also to form well-constructed opinions are vital to active participation in democracy. So as you can see from this statement, we need people to challenge their beliefs and seek out different perspectives. Yet the tools to do this are not learned early enough everywhere. We identified two effective ways of providing a solution, either by impacting the media for better quality public conversations or by impacting our education system. By speaking to a diverse range of young adults and to Marco Steinberg, the CEO of Haystack, we found that most were interested in incorporating critical thinking into education at a young age. After a few rounds of ideation and reframing, we came to our solution. Think Factory. Think Factory provides a few days course to schools, inviting students to challenge their opinions by teaching them digital literacy and critical thinking. We believe that we can make the most impact by starting with first years in high school who are about to become eligible to vote. This course will start off as a separate program, providing students a safe space outside of classes and free from teacher biases. Our company also aims to incorporate critical thinking effectively into school subjects by providing consultation to teachers. The key elements of our course are listed here and are interlinked and involved across multiple stages of the process. It is important that we encourage the active implementation of these elements outside of class, across disciplines, and in an iterative cycle.
And here would be our program structure. It's going to be fun, unique, totally different from any usual classes. We start with the shock factors to creating an awareness. Then we move on to a few different interactive activities, and we're going to give you a few examples. Different media views. We're trying to teach you the mindset and help you to understand the importance of seeking for knowledge from different media outlets, even outside the Western world. For example, here you can see that the Vietnamese media outlet portrait our Prime Minister, Sanna Marin, in a very negative tone of voice, whereas in America, she's depicted to be the coolest politicians in the world. And the same thing can be applied to every other topics, even for the Ukraine war. You get to know your filter bubbles. You start by mapping your own trusted source of informations, like your favorite media outlets, your favorite influencers, and you compare that to your classmates to see the overlap. This will help you to be aware that there is a filter bubbles, and you are probably in one of them. Perspective speed date. We invite groups of people with totally different backgrounds, with different perspectives, and then we have our students have a chat with them about certain topics like climate change or EVs. Debating skills are essential for critical thinkers. We invite our students to be able to debate and defend two sides of one statement so that they can express their own opinions, and they can also develop an empathy for people from different or opposite viewpoints. We are still in our testing phase, so we targeted the first year of upper secondary school. And why is that? Because at that age, you are about to be eligible to vote, and you are about to make a bigger decisions in your life. We're planning to use our knowledge to a broader age group, and we're using hybrid events for scalable solutions. To sum up, we're trying to help the school, the educational institutions, to incorporate critical thinking, digital literacy in a fun and effective way. We're offering multiple workshops, quick exercises, keynote speakers, and in-depth group work. We also provide teachers a tool and knowledge to incorporate critical thinking in their own ways of teachings and in their own ways of evaluations. We are going to also measure our impact for future developments of our solutions. So let's develop a healthy skepticism with us. And with Think Factory, we're going to improve our democracy. Thank you.
Thank you, Boris. So now it's time for the first Q&A session, and we would like to invite one person of each team who just presented up on the stage again.
First, we have a question for the TikTok team. So why did you choose the parents as a target group?
That's an excellent question. It did require some bit of pondering. We wanted to do something different that does not exist quite well, and something I think many parents are struggling a lot. As the education part was decided we want to educate, and we decided we didn't go with the teacher track, as we believe the teachers are quite busy constantly when we had our research, and I know from the field as well. So we decided that parents could be something new and interesting to look into, and it also was a need from our interviews that parents were really asking that how can they actually help their children.
Thank you, Laura. The second question goes to the second team. So school slacks actually goes to the no. Schools lacks of resources and teachers don't have enough time and skills to teach kids about social media. Have you considered about this fact in your solution?
Yes, so definitely we have thought about this thing, and I want to highlight that our offline workshops will be conducted by our trained volunteers, so giving the teachers all the resources and example that they need. And basically, those who didn't attend the workshops or want to get some more information, we would have downloadable kits that would help to reduce the research that the teachers would do. So basically, you have all of the materials prepared, you just have to skim through them, and that's it. You're ready to teach the kids. And I would also want to highlight that even though we do know that there's lack of resources, but we cannot cut the important topics away just because of it. We would need to look why the resources aren't there. So it's not an option to just cut important topics away if you don't have resources. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Now we have a question for group 3, which was involved with the mental health issues. We had several questions about like if the peer support can like be the same good like and the same quality as also professional help, or how do you see like the relation between the peer support and the professional therapy or other means?
All right, that's a good question. We don't really see peer support as replacing therapy or other mental health treatment options. Peer support could be, according to expert, used as something that's supporting other treatment options for those people who are already suffering with mental health issues. But we also see that for those people who haven't necessarily developed an issue that would require therapy, peer support could be something that will help you develop social relationships which will protect your mental health and support you in that way.
Great. And then we have another question for the last team, for the team 4. So, filter bubbles could also have some kind of function that they're kind of a safe space for people. How do you find a way there that people can still be safe and not like only come out of their filter bubble if they wanted to have it?
Sorry, can you repeat the last bit again?
Like how do you keep the safe space for the people which the filter bubble can also mean? Or what are your thoughts on these kind of things that maybe the filter bubble is also
I
good?
guess like why we decided not to go with the media and rather with the education system is that we feel that everyone should be informed about the filter bubbles and also about the real and fake news. But of course, at the end of the day, it's up to them what information they actually take in from social media and from other platforms.
Great. Thank you all for the Q&As, for the question, for the answers, sorry. Now we all have a short break, and we'll continue at 3:30 with a second set of pitches. Thank you. Yes, please come back to your seat. We'll continue now. Get your last coffee and your last water. Yeah, please come back. So, we would like to continue with the next pitches. And during the first part, we tackled a lot of challenges with the youth and the children. But now we're moving forward. What's going to come now?
Just before we announce what's coming up next, we would like to remind you to send your burning questions to the Q&A Padlet, and the QR codes can be found on top of your tables. So anything you have for the teams, please ask them on the Padlet. But next we will have Kalle and Matti to talk about the self-expression in the virtual world. Please welcome Kalle and Matti to the stage.
Thank you, Paula.
Thanks.
And Moritz.
So, as we all can agree, we're moving towards the digital world fast. But have you ever thought about the future of self-expression? Currently, the problem is that people wanted ways to express their personalities online, but instead, they got decentralized stock markets. Here's a prime example of the problem at the moment in the gaming world. This is from a game Counter-Strike. One skin for one gun costs almost 2,000 euros in the market at the moment. Or the only other option is to buy a loot pack where you have a really slim chance of actually getting the item. So basically, the game is rigged, and the early adopters have all the best skins, and newcomers have a hard time of expressing themselves. The importance of digital goods for the gaming industry is immense. The market is already more than 30 billion and is growing yearly by 17%. And already 59% of in-game purchases are from character outfits in Fortnite. Current trends: 70% of the gamers bought items for digital identity, expression, or uniqueness. These unique items are really hard to get, as I mentioned, the loot packs, so that leads to addiction and impulsive buying and addiction. Therefore, you spend a lot of money on games that you might not play anymore in the future. Here are some insights from our research and interviews. The most common feelings associated with buying virtual goods is happiness from wearing the stuff, as with your beloved hobby. You have the stuff on, you feel good, and then you have the other side of the coin, regret from spending impulsively. So here we arrive at the market problem. The supply is really low, but the demand is sky high and skyrocketing all the time. Also, it doesn't help that the big gaming companies control the way they handle the skins by themselves. So it's a myriad of choices.
Yes, thank you. So, currently research shows that gaming avatars are not fragmented versions of the players, but more of collective pieces of oneself. And this also supports the idea that we need a more interoperable solution for these kind of issues. So, we identified 3 different stakeholders, which were the designers, gamers, and the gaming industry. And for the designers, we noticed that they have at the moment a lack for an accessible marketplace. And with our solution, they will be able to monetize on their designs, which will make designing virtual clothes more appealing for them. And then we have the gamers who currently suffer from the issues that Matti brought up, and they can't self-express themselves as freely as they want. And they also have the issue of the demand and supply, and the supply that would be brought by the designers would also solve this. And then the last stakeholder is the gaming industry, which we see this as a way for them to monetize on cross-platform shopping and to attract new gamers to play their games. And the latter part is especially true for the smaller gaming studios. So, we know that interoperability and self-expression go hand in hand. We came up with a solution that has 3 main functionalities. Starting with the first 2, we have an accessible marketplace where the designers and gaming industry can design interoperable skins and virtual goods and sell them on the marketplace. And they can monetize on this. And for the gamers, we see it as a way for them to purchase from a more predictable market, and then they can use the skins freely on different platforms and resell the skins once they don't want to use them anymore. And from the reselling of the skins, the original creators will have royalties from every sale that is made. And our third functionality is an AI-powered digital closet. And the idea behind this is that you can convert your skins that you already have. For example, we see here we have a Fortnite skin, and you can convert it, for example, for a Minecraft skin. And this skin can be used on multiple gaming platforms, and it's also the issue of the lack of self-expression, as you can use your skins more profoundly.
So, let's reset the virtual world and make digital self-expression more accessible for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kalle and Matti. Moritz, what do you think about their slides?
I would say really well done.
Maybe you want to check them out later from our YouTube recording. So as we're live streaming, it will be also available later to go check it out. But next, we will welcome Matthias and Gladys to the stage, and they will share their insights on data transparency on social media. So let's give a big hand of applause to Matthias and Gladys.
Privacy. We take it for granted at home, but we're willing to compromise it online. Why do you think that is? Privacy online is a very intangible concept. We rarely see the repercussions of our actions, so we start to think that there are none. But why is this topic important? Protecting privacy is key for ensuring human dignity, security, and self-determination. It allows us to freely develop ourselves. However, despite having different regulations in place, such as the GDPR, many companies still have issues complying with them. For instance, Google was fined 10 million euros for unlawfully transferring data to third parties. From our interview, 7 out of 8 people felt uncomfortable sharing their data, despite previously agreeing to the different terms and conditions. From the company point of view, we found that the collected data is primarily used for targeted advertising, and that for companies such as Meta, it is their primary source of income. And feel safe, we also learned that companies do not give data blindly to governments. From the user point of view, we found that indeed most of the users feel not safe despite agreeing to the terms and conditions. We also learned that ad preference settings can enable companies from targeting you, but that does not stop the data collecting. And finally, we learned that to an extent, social media can be used anonymously. Our main insight is that even though users don't feel safe while using social media and are indeed aware of the different risks that come with it, they use it because they crave social connection. And now to our solution.
Thank you, Matthias. So, based on that insight, we come up with a solution, which is to create an interface where our users could see in real time what data they have produced and where it will go in real time. In addition to the transparency, we also want to create another feature inside that interface to let them clean and review what data they have produced in real time. Currently, the legislation doesn't require a social media company to tell its users about the imminent danger of data collecting and the importance of it. So we think it will be a really great idea to create an awareness campaign that let our users know about this matter. So this is the idea that we come up with. We will create an interface in the form of a floating icon. And this floating icon will be on top of your UI whenever you're opening a social media account. So whenever you're scrolling through Instagram, and then you'll see this pop-up button. And whenever you're opening your, whenever you're like interacting with a certain post, this floating icon will tell you what data you have produced and where it will go. In addition to that, you can also click on the floating icon and you can see all the data you have produced in the last hour, and you can review and clean it as you like. So now you can get the ads that you actually want to interact with. Sadly, during our discussion, we do find some challenges in our solution, which is massive data collecting. As long as massive data is being collected from our user, it will be really complicated and hard to try to stay private in our social media account. Despite that, we do think that our solution will be a really great step in fixing this major tension and also a great step in making a better future. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthias and Gladys. So now after social media, we'll move to another topic, and it's how to save the planet while eating. And to talk about this will be Emilia and Juan.
Climate change, environmental crisis, everywhere. The discussion is no longer whether it is real or not, but how we are failing at fixing it. Governments and companies feel slow at taking actions. We are far from meeting the climate change goals, and people feel like they can do anything. But truth is that us, as individuals, as the problem solvers that we are, we can actually make a difference. So we ask ourselves, how can we help the people to make the little actions count? Well, first, we researched which of the consumption areas had the greatest impact on the environment. And according to EU reports, turned out to be food. It's true that there is people already trying to act in this regard, but they face numerous issues, leading to what is called intention gap between environmental awareness and environmental action. People say it's willing to buy more eco-friendly options, but in reality, they don't behave accordingly. So how can we change this narrative and close the gap? Well, first, we should understand what causes this environmental gap, for which we conducted some research by interviewing university students in the Helsinki region to discover their consuming habits in grocery shopping. Why university students? Because they are going to be the next generation of householders. So it's important to understand now the reasoning behind their consuming behaviors. Out of these interviews, we found out three main barriers that discourage them from buying more environmentally friendly. First one, price. Second one, availability. And the third one, knowledge. We decided to focus on this third one, knowledge, since it's the one that requires the less amount of resources to be tackled at first. But what do we mean by knowledge? By knowledge, we meant that students, in order to change their behavior, they need to have access to more clear and simple, effective information. And we are not talking only about information that one, as individual, can learn by themselves, but also about information that is given instinctively. This means the information in the moment you need it in the least intrusive way possible. Through a customer journey map, we identify the pains that these students undergo due to the lack of knowledge when doing shopping groceries. By identifying those pains, we found on opportunities for which we design solutions.
So, we wanted to make the environmentally friendly consumption easier by providing consumers quick and easy information to help them gain more knowledge on different alternatives and to make them feel rewarded. As a solution, we created a timeline that has actions of different depths, and our proposal moves from the ones that can already be started now to the ones that need more time and actors to be implemented. And the solution consists of 3 stages: the introduction of green campaigns to grocery stores, product filters to online stores, and government-regulated eco-scores. And to implement the first 2 solutions, we need actors from the food industry that are in direct contact with the consumers, the grocery stores. So in an early stage, we propose the grocery stores to establish the green campaigns, and they are made to spread the word on sustainable products and to support consumers in making informed and conscious choices. And in these campaigns, the sustainable products are emphasized and made easy to find both in physical and online stores. And so when the consumers are familiar with these products, we want to make the purchasing experience of those easy and more effortless. So with the filters on, the consumers will find all the environmentally friendly products and know that they are making the better choice without having to look for information on singular products. And lastly, we need to provide quick and comparable information to consumers, and we do it by implementing government-regulated eco-scores to every food product. And these eco-scores show different environmental effects of the products, such as emissions, usage of natural resources, mode of production, packaging, and the origin. And this was invented and tested in France, but it has not yet been used in other countries. So, when nearly 8 billion people take one bite, every single one matters. It is time to start believing in the power of our little daily actions. So let's save the world one bite at a time.
Thank you, Emilia and Huran. You really made it sound easy to save the planet. Could we now please ask one person from each of the three teams to come on the stage for the second Q&A session?
So, for the first team, which was about self-expressions, there were some questions about the point that there are like, you'll make a platform, but also the game engines and the game developers, they make a lot of money with the skins. Maybe it's one of their biggest income. So how do you convince the platforms to join your the existing developers and platform to join your marketplace, and how do you share the revenue?
Thank you for the question. So basically, this is a way for the bigger game developers to monetize the cross-platform shopping, but we see this especially for the smaller game studios, as they will be able to create a wider metaverse basically between different gaming platforms.
Thank you.
For the team number 2, or second team of the second pitch block, the question is, would the information be possible to access also through some other places than just pressing the floating icon on your social media?
Oh, that's an excellent question, actually. We haven't thought about it that far, but of course we would be open for suggestions. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
Then for the third team and the idea to have like these labels for ecology, how do you decide about the criteria which you use to decide which like level a product has? Did you think about that?
Well, these labels have already some regulation and have some normatives. So that means that the label consider for all the product the same categories and the same kind of areas. So that means that all the products are evaluated fairly in the same way.
Thank you. We have a couple of minutes extra time, so we can ask a couple of more questions, if that's okay for the team presenters. So for Kalle, what other ways of self-expression are there besides game skins?
That's a good question. Skins, of course, are not the only one. There are also other virtual items. There are different, for example, weapons. There are different like extra effects, like flames over your head and that kind of stuff. So there are many ways of expressing yourself. And then there's always, for example, in Minecraft, you can create your own world, which is always a form, also a form of self-expression.
Thank you.
Then another question for the third team. Is it like from the labels in France? Are your labels like do people have to use them, or is it like a decision by the company to use the label? And why would you choose which way?
Well, in France, actually this eco-label regulation is already somehow established by the EU, but it's somehow optional. But the French government decided to go a bit farther and establish that it should be mandatory. So they are in this transition, and therefore many companies are jumping into. They want to be actually kind of the first ones. They want to show that they have nothing to hide, and they have this commitment with the environment. So they have this extra motivation to show this environment, these labels on their products.
Thank you for the answer. And final question for Laura. Since people agree to the terms on the social media platforms, then how could this solution clean the data from these platforms, as they are the owners of the data now?
So you mean that the platform would be the owner of the data now, as people have created the terms and conditions?
Yes.
Yes, so of course for our solution to work, we would have to make some partnerships with the social media platforms beforehand. And of course maybe make the agreeing to the terms and conditions to be a bit later throughout the using process of the social media platform. Thank you.
Thank you for all the answers. And let's have a big round of applause to all of the teams from the second. And let's also welcome Laura and Huang to the stage.
Afternoon. Thank you, Moritz and Paula, for hosting. We will take the stage for hosting for the rest of the afternoon.
Okay, next we have our second keynote speaker, Juho Makkonen. Juho Makkonen is a co-founder, CEO, CFO of Shared Tribe, a steward software company that is on a mission to democratize the platform economy. Juho is also the co-author of the Lean Marketplace, a practical guide for building a successful online marketplace business. Today, Juho will answer the questions: how to build a platform business that are the force for good. Please remember to ask the questions to Juho on the Padlet. Let's welcome Juho on the stage.
Can you hear me now? Perfect. All right. All right. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm old. So technology is a bit like, Sorry. Yeah, but hey, really really great to be here. Thanks a lot for having me. I'm going to be talking about today about a topic that I think is very much at the core of this entire event today and this entire course, which is about like how to build businesses that truly create positive impact in the world. But I'm maybe going to be approaching it from a bit different angle than some of the other pitches here today. I'm going to share the story of our company, which has been already around for quite a bit, and the different twists and turns that we saw along the way. I'm going to start with a bit of a teaser. Our company today cannot be sold. It's a company that cannot be sold. It also cannot be taken public in a traditional sense, and it also cannot pay any dividends to shareholder. And that you might ask, like, why on earth did we build a company with these premises? So I'm going to answer that later. But yeah, first a bit about our company and our history. So I come from a company called ShareTribe, like mentioned. So our software helps entrepreneurs to create their own online marketplaces, specifically in the field of the so-called sharing economy. So this was our first platform that I built together with my co-founder back in 2008-9. Launched in Aalto. Beautiful design. I'm sure all the designers in the room can appreciate that. Done by me at the time. I am not a designer myself. But yeah, so it was a peer-to-peer marketplace for borrowing stuff from other students, selling your old course books, finding an apartment, doing things like this. It actually is still running, though it looks a bit different these days. So if you go to aalto.sharetribe.com, maybe some of you here have even used it at some point. So, but yeah, so this was what really got us excited about this concept of the sharing economy, which back then was like a really like this new and up and coming thing. So this platform by itself didn't really become any huge at any point, but really understood that it was part of this bigger movement of the sharing, or nowadays also sometimes called the platform economy. You would have like these big platforms like Airbnb and Uber and Etsy, and at this point they were still small, but in 2009, 2010 they started becoming bigger. And our initial thought on that was that this is a really great thing. This is a purely like positive thing for the society. What is there not to like? You know, these platforms help people save money or make more money to make ends meet. At the same time, they put underutilized resources to better use, so it's great for the planet. And it's also a more human-faced economy. Like instead of like buying from big corporations, people can just get goods and services they need from other people. So this is really great, and we became huge advocates of the so-called sharing economy at the time. And our original mission became to help the whole world share. So our idea was that we would help anybody to create these type of sharing platforms anywhere in the world. And our first product, a software product that we launched in 2014, was called ShareTribe Go. And that is still operational today. It allows, if you go to our website, you can basically with a couple of clicks create your own peer-to-peer marketplace for selling your old stuff or renting out stuff from other people or exchanging various services. I'm going to show some examples soon. Nowadays we also have another product which is a more scalable version that you can actually with some custom development build a really high scale marketplace. Today our software powers just over 1,000 such marketplaces in more than 70 countries and around the world. We are a team of 24. We are a profitable company, around 2 million euros in revenue. Couple of examples of like what people, the founders we work with, have built with our solution. The peer-to-peer rental use case is really common. So we have like things like Airbnb for X. So this one is about hiring trailers from other people. This is about renting camping spots. Then we have the peer-to-peer selling use case. So in this case, it's like used kids' clothes in UK. And this is more like an Etsy, so like independent painters can sell their paintings online through this marketplace. And then there are various services like from finding a tutor for your children or like some kind of like an online class and all kinds of things. So we have a bit more than 1,000 platforms like this that we are powering. And all this, like we were quite happy about this for a bit. Except that then at some point, like we really started asking ourselves, is this whole thing, the sharing economy, platform economy, is this actually good for the society? Are these platforms really making the world a better place? And I think many of you, when I looked at the ideas for this course, I noticed that many of you were asking these same questions, that are all the platforms, these big platforms that control lots of our data and the transactions that we do with each other, are they really making the world better. And we started taking a bit more critical look at these examples that I mentioned in the beginning, Airbnb, Uber, and Etsy. And they all had a really great like original promise and kind of like initial mission. But at the same time, these days, all of these companies are public, and before that they were heavily VC funded. And we started noticing that the original promise and the public company reality were actually at odds in many cases. So Airbnb's original promise, that underutilized assets to better use. If you have a spare room or even a spare mattress, you can like rent it out, so we don't need to build as many hotels. We can really use our apartments more efficiently. Reality today, though, is that actually lots of apartments in city centrals are half empty because like people who used to be renting them to people are now just keeping them as vacation rentals, and they make more money by actually like only having tourists there, which means that people with lower incomes are pushed into suburbs, which is not exactly maybe what the original mission was about. Uber really originally was about you don't need to own a car. We would need way less cars because every car would be super efficient. You could just like in a really cheap way, you could travel in somebody else's car. I'm not going to list all the problems that I see with Uber, but I'm going to just mention here one, which is that actually studies show that it has created more traffic on our streets. So there's more emissions coming from cars because all those drivers are circulating around cities and looking for the next ride. So it's completely, obviously, opposite the original mission. In Etsy, also like a really social enterprise B Corp originally. It was only handmade products. Now I'm betting that most of the companies there are actually factory made because they also needed to expand the business and there was a constant pressure to grow. And we really started thinking about this thing and I started wondering like how do you get the benefits of the so-called sharing or platform economy, because those benefits are still there. The economic benefit is there, the environmental potential is there, social benefit is there, but how do you actually get those without getting the downsides of the so-called platform capitalism, which is that basically you have this, that all these platforms, when they raise lots of VC money, they become really big, that they become actually really extractive, they take a huge stack of the commission, they really like put their people working through them in a really precarious position and accumulate the wealth, and really the pressure to grow and grow and grow even higher, like it ends up at some point trumping the original mission, as we saw with those 3 examples. And obviously that means that suddenly like 1% or even like 1% of 1% ends up like owning most of the wealth in the world, and this whole platform capitalism is really accelerating that trend, and that really cannot be good for the world. And we started thinking about like what can we do here, and our mission really became to democratize platform ownership, and what we felt that we would want to give people a choice. So instead of, if they are not happy with the rules of like a giant platform, it should be really easy for them to build platform business of their own. Instead of, so it shouldn't be required for them to use a huge amount of VC funding, which basically ties them to investors if they want to launch a platform like this. So if today we have these giant Death Star platforms, then future could look something like this. We would have platforms run by non-profits, by small and medium-sized enterprises, by social enterprises, by non-profits, by cooperatives, and all these different, and this is really, we felt that this is the world, the new world of platform economy that we want to power through our software, and that became our mission. And there was only one problem, that we went to various events and talked to various people about this mission, and we would get this question that what prevents you from like becoming one of them? Like you are also a VC funded startup. Like, and that was true. Like we had raised a round of VC funding to ourselves from Lifeline Ventures, actually. Hello to the previous guest speaker. And like the reality was that we realized that if we would keep on the traditional startup path, if we would be raising more and more and more rounds, eventually maybe going public, assume that we would become really successful, that would mean that actually we would no longer be in control of our company. And if we would face a situation like those companies, Airbnb, Etsy, Uber, faced earlier, where actually their original purpose and the ability to create more profit would be in conflict, we wouldn't be able to choose to prioritize the original mission. And we realized that we didn't really have a good answer to these people. Obviously, we would say that we are great people, like we would never do that, but that wasn't really a credible answer. And we were wrestling with this, especially when we realized that we are gonna need one more round of funding to really like get to a sustainable level with our business. And that's when we came across this concept of a steward ownership, which is like a really old concept, but just like with a new name given to it recently, about like structuring companies in a way that they are actually truly beneficial for our society. And there are two core principles on that. First principle is that you structure the company so that it's really oriented towards its purpose, which basically means that it cannot, it's actually enforced in a way to put its purpose, put its mission before profit maximization. So in a situation where purpose and profits are in conflict, you are actually bound and required to choose to prioritize the purpose. And the second is that you create a self-governance structure, which means that companies are not controlled by external shareholders or investors, but they are always controlled by people close to them, usually by the working team. And we implemented it by actually changing our company articles of association, so the official structure of our company. So today, only people who are working at ShareTab can hold voting rights. Company is owned by its team. The team decides what are we going to be doing. No outside shareholder can determine that. That also means that we cannot ever sell the company. It's actually like permanently like prevented from us. Even though we started from a traditional limited company OU structure here in Finland, it was possible within the Finnish legislation to do a bit of a hack and make these changes. And finally, like we have cap on profit distribution and salaries. If you invest in the company, you know that you're gonna get back your money 5x if you're successful. But that's it. You're not gonna get more. So that we ever won't face a situation where we would be in this situation. We would just have to maximize profits and grow and grow and grow, like even more, because there's this cap. And the same goes for a team too. The salaries are capped in a similar way. And this structure is actually made permanent by giving a veto share for a foundation that is bound by its rules to prevent any changes to the structure. So basically, it really is like kind of like an ironclad thing. So I'm not gonna go into more details of like how that works. You can go to our blog if you want to read more about that. But I think that this was a really interesting thing for us when we learned that it's actually possible to structure this company in this way that really allows us to give this binding
Hello. Ooh, this is working really well. All right, so mic problems continue. Let me continue despite those. Yeah, so we implemented this structure in 2018, and we raised the crowdfunding round with this new model, and more than 400 people and like organizations from more than 42 countries participated, and we ended up raising a bit more than 1 million, and we actually used part of that money to buy back some shares from our earlier investors, because obviously we were no longer able to commit to the original promise which we had made to them, which is that we would make an exit at some point, and they would receive their money through a company sale or an IPO, because we would never be able to do that. So then we ended up buying some shares back from them, which and because of that they allowed us to do this transition, and luckily lots of people believed in this new approach enough that made this possible. And today, so it's been 4.5 years since we did this transition. I really think it was the best decision we made in the history of the company. There are definitely like some downsides too. We cannot raise funding anymore from like traditional venture capitalists, which definitely limits our capital options. If we need lots of money, we need to figure out how to structure that. There are other ways, but we are a bit more limited in that sense. We also cannot compensate like team members by giving them options and say, hey, you're going to be rich eventually when we do an IPO, or we're not going to be the next Walt ever. And naturally that means that our own payoff is limited. There's a cap. We will get a certain amount of return eventually from the profits of the company. Like we have some shares that the company will buy back from us, and through those we can get like a okay-ish payoff, but it has a cap, and it's like still relatively modest, like compared to the big exit numbers you see. On the other hand, we can really, after this, always make this binding promise to any stakeholder. We will never sell out, so to speak. We won't become like one of those like extractive Death Star platforms, and that really like makes it easier for us to help ensure that people, whether they are our customers, whether they are team members, whether they are other like stakeholders, they really trust us to do the right thing. We are independent. We are fully in control of our own destiny, every team member always has the incentive to put their purpose over profit, and it just feels right. So for us, the pros clearly outweigh the cons. So that's it for me today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Juho. We will now have time for some questions asked by the audience. And as the first question I could ask, what is currently the biggest threshold for even more booming growth of the sharing economy?
Yeah, that is a really good question. I still think that there's, in the end, like quite a lot of friction. Like, despite like all the effort like made, it's still like it's not easy enough. Like, if you think about, let's say, like instead of like getting like a new tool or a new piece of clothing, going through the trouble of like renting it from another person, there's still so many hurdles that are related to trust, that are related to convenience. And like there are many platforms these days that are solving those challenges, but still, like it should be just as easy as it is to go to a shop and get a new one. And that's the point we need to get to. And until we are there, it won't become huge, I think.
Thank you. Then next question is Shopify is actually offering the same business model. How you are differentiating between your ShareTribe and Shopify?
Yeah, great question. So Shopify was something that existed already when we started at ShareTribe. However, Shopify was really great if you wanted to be like a person who has you're making a product and you have them in your like closet or in your own stock and you're selling them out of your closet. But Shopify wasn't really good for creating this two-sided platform, like creating your own eBay or creating your own Airbnb or creating your own Tori.fi where multiple people are buying and selling. So Shopify just wasn't built for that, and it still isn't really good for that. And so that was basically where we saw that there's the need. You wouldn't use ShareTribe today to just build an online store for selling my own products. But if you want to create a platform that has these two sides, then I think that we are a really good solution.
Interesting, thank you. Next question. Do you somehow help your clients to do sharing Do you somehow help your clients to do sharing economy as ethically as possible?
Yeah, that is a really good question. So far we haven't had any kind of like this ethical threshold in the sense that, okay, only if you like, we don't have like a sustainability check for your business that, okay, you are not sustainable enough, we are not going to be serving you. That's a discussion we are having every now and then. We do write a lot about these topics, and actually through our own example, so everything that I shared today about like what we are doing ourselves, like we frequently communicate about that to our customers, and then also at least like try to spread the awareness of these types of like new models. I definitely think first as the steward ownership model is something that I definitely hope many of our customers will also adopt. And at least like recently I've heard that many of them are considering that, hey, actually maybe this would be a really good way for them to. So mostly I'd say by leading by example.
Thank you. On the same note, do you measure your platform user economics, environmental, or social performance?
Yeah, so far we haven't really found like a good way to measure that. I really hope we are able to do that at some point, but every platform is so unique, so different, and there are like more than 1,000 of them, so kind of like, it's a bit like creating like a system that would like, already like for one platform it can be like a bit complex, but one rental platform can probably like create those metrics. But then for us to create something that works throughout all those platforms and which are in different countries and different contexts and have like unique circumstances, that is quite complex. I hope that we'll get there. I think we need to be a bit bigger still to achieve that.
I think we still have time for a few questions. How does steward ownership influence the competitiveness of the company?
Yeah, really good question. On one hand, there's always the question of like, will there be a competitor that will just raise lots of VC money and then because of that make their platform better or just super cheap, so that it's like, and so far that hasn't really happened. But obviously that's always like kind of like a question that would be in this competition because of funding. I still think that we are in a software service industry, and it's not as much of this like winner takes it all. market than, let's say, food delivery, where you just need this huge amount of capital to do, basically to go to a new market and so on. So maybe our market is something where it's easier to operate with our steward ownership structure. So naturally, on the other hand, like it's really like when we are like hiring new people, like when we are talking about this concept to the founders, when we are talking about it to press, like I feel we have a really good story to tell, and this story I feel resonates with many people. There are lots of people who just want to be somehow part of that, and that definitely helps us in our journey. And I think in any case, for any company that is really mission driven and wants to do something good, I think they all benefit from this idea that it just, you know, there will be lots of people who just want to be part of what you're doing.
Thank you. Now we have one last one for you, sorry. As an entrepreneur, you are goal-oriented instead of resource-driven. How do you manage to always stick achieving your goal in these challenging situations?
Yeah, good question. Obviously, if I think about like our goals, like they are still like a bit different. So like we kind of like don't have this same situation than like many other companies have, which is somehow like go big or go home. Like that's what I thought originally, that startups, that there are only two alternatives. We went to this original batch of startup sauna here in Aalto, and that's what our teachers there told us, that there are only two types of like companies, those that become really big and unicorns, or then you go bust and you go bankrupt. And then we just realized that actually you can grow to become a sustainable company that is making an impact, and it doesn't really necessarily matter like how much you grow, like if you are in control and if you are independent. And like we've had a year when we didn't grow at all. We've had a year when we grew quite a lot. And in the end, like it doesn't, realizing that like what is our long game, what is our end game, that is something that is years or tens of years away, and we can be patient. And because of we are structured that way, it really like helps us in this struggle, because we don't have to run for the next quarterly goal and so on. So I have no idea how the people who actually run those startups that have lots of VC funding and kind of like, or run public companies do it. That sounds awful. That's probably why I'm not doing that.
Thank you very much, Juho. Thank you for your thoughts, and thank you for the audience for your questions. Now we will have a short break, last break before our last presentation and pitches, and we will continue in 15 minutes, so 16:35 we will continue. See you then. Thank you.
Thank you.
inside my town. Don't want to listen, but the whispers are too loud. My heart is dark. Let's take the car and get away. 'Cause I want to stop a feeling that I will never be enough. So just take me for a ride. That's false back. I want to stop the feeling that I will never be enough. So just take me for a ride. That's false back. Cause I want to stop the feeling that I will never be enough. So just take me for a ride. That's false back. I want to stop the feeling that I will never be enough. So just take me for a ride. That's false back.
Hello.
Sorry. Okay, it's time to continue with the last patch of pictures. And first up we will have Alicia, and they will tackle with detecting mental health issues. Yes, welcome, let's.
Hello. Can I see my slides? Thank you. My name is Alicia Thomas, and here you can see a picture of my project group. And I have a question for you. What might be wrong with these people? Let's find out together. When I was a child, I had the flu, probably like every one of you. I learned what the typical symptoms are, and when I experience symptoms now, I can immediately detect them, link them to the causing disease, and get appropriate treatment quickly. We all have this kind of learned health knowledge and behavior. So at age 13, I started feeling miserable all the time. And at this time point, my condition worsened because I failed in detecting the symptoms and linking them to their cause. And my mental health disorder stayed undetected and untreated for over 10 years. I could neither identify myself as being in a super dark place or feeling the need to do some yoga or meditation to feel better. At this point, I did not have any learned health knowledge or behavior at hand I could apply here to realistically evaluate my condition and reach out for help. So globally, 4 barriers are identified that prevent people from getting help on mental health issues. And Finland is actually doing a great job in deconstructing all of them. For example, there are even twice as many therapists available as being recommended. So is there even a problem in Finland? Still, 50% of the Finns experience mental health issues at some point in their life. So there is a tension with Finland doing a great job in deconstructing the 4 barriers, but still being the #1 country in the EU when it comes with the highest incidence rate in mental health issues in its population. We looked into that tension, and by applying design thinking and interviewing 2 experts on mental health, we discovered that there is a hidden, underlying barrier, the barrier 0. I explained it with me as an example. Before I could even start reaching out to get help, I had to self-detect my symptoms, stop undermining them, and realizing that I actually need help. So deconstructing the 4 barriers is important, but becomes invaluable when people even get stuck beforehand at the barrier 0 already. So we asked ourselves in my project group, how might we enable people to self-detect their mental health issues when being at risk without knowing it? Our suggestion is that we need to shift our associations we have with how mental health issue symptoms look like to a more realistic picture we can identify ourselves with. Thereby it becomes easier for us to detect them, and thereby they can be prevented and treated at an earlier stage. From this earlier time point in detection, we expect an increase in the recovery probability and speed for the individual. If we scale this individual effect up to the 50% of the Finns experiencing mental health issues at some point in their life, this leads to a more resilient Finnish population overall. Also, costs are decreased, for example, by a decrease in sick leaves or in long-term treatments. So let me give you some inspiration of how we could realize such a shift in time point in detection. We all know these kinds of labels from daily consumption that try to motivate us to change our behavior, for example, for throwing away plastic trash. We want to utilize this method to create opportunities for you in your daily life to learn on what your consumption can tell you about your mental state, so the other way around. And thereby you can catch up on your lack on learned health knowledge and behavior on mental health issues, and may be able to detect upcoming mental health issues at an earlier stage. So back to the initial question, what might be wrong with these people? 2 of them actually got stuck at barrier 0. And now I want you to ask yourselves, what are my associations with how mental health issue symptoms look like, and may I experiencing some in my current life? We say that it is not enough that I stand here and tell you you should be more aware when you never learned what to be aware of. We suggest we need external indicators that help you to answer this question and prevent you from getting stuck at barrier 02. So how do you feel all about this? Leave us your questions in the Q&A, and we are happy when you contact us if you want to know more about the topic or feel the need for more support information. Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia, for the insightful talk about mental health and how to detect it. We would like to remind you to send out your questions to the last Q&A. Next up, I'm guessing that most of you are suffering from the electricity bills, right? We have Helena, Anne, and Stapa tackling the issues of energy crisis. Let's welcome them on stage.
Hey, so I guess we've all heard the horror stories of the rising energy prices. And also even a crazier scenario when one day, while watching your favorite Netflix show, you could run out of power overall. So we decided to start solving the energy crisis, and we know it's a big challenge to solve, but we still decided to give it a go. Or at the beginning of our research, we realized we have two paths to take. Either we start producing more energy, but this takes a lot of time, and time is something we don't have too much at the moment. So we decided to go with reducing the energy consumption, which we believe we can start doing right away. We put the focus on households because we believe that taking small steps on a micro level can have a big impact on a larger scale. And next up, we decided to look into what is the biggest energy expenditure in households, focusing on Finland. And we figured it's heating. And we know we can't drastically change it right away because we still want to feel warm at our house this winter. But we decided to still take a look. Maybe there are some small ways we could decrease it at least a little bit. Luckily, we found that there are already smart thermostats out there, which basically focus on not using the energy on peak hours, taking into account weather forecasts, or you can also turn it on and off when you're not at home. So overall, you can reduce the energy consumption and overall also reduce the energy bill. And now that we have all these great opportunities out there, we were figuring like, why aren't people using them more? So we actually contacted one of the CEOs of one of these companies and we asked them, what is the problem? He thought that the main thing currently is the lack of awareness. People either just don't know about them, and from users' point of view, we figured people are skeptic. Do they actually work? And they can also seem a bit expensive to buy up front right away. But luckily, we figured a solution for that.
So it turns out that people don't want to think about their energy or their electricity consumption. So when do people have to think about it? The answer is the electricity contract renewal. Therefore, we suggest that the device manufacturer partner with the energy companies to make an offer where customer can install the device without paying anything in advance, but instead paying through their electricity bill. So let's elaborate on that. So currently in the market, you have two options. Either you pay with the market rate or you pay with the fixed rate. Here, we suggest that customer pay with the market rate and get the device for free. The device company will then get the return on their device through the 10% add-on in the electricity bill. So let's look at how it works. So here's how the electricity bill looked like before the device. And here's how it looked like after the device. And as you can see, the consumption was reduced by a significant amount. And of course, because you don't really get the device for free, here's how the actual bill looked like with the 10% add-on. But thing is, even with the 10%, your bill is still lower than before because the device can save up to 20% of your bill. And the thing is, once the device has been paid off completely, the 10% also goes away and you enjoy the cheaper bill without any additional fee.
And now the problem is solved, right? We put all these devices to each houses and solve 3 major problems we identified before. But we still think that we can make these devices better and more affordable. So we have come up with these 3 proposals. So our first idea is, we know that these devices could predict the electricity prices. So the app can send you a notification so that you know when you will turn on your dishwasher. So that with these little nudges, you can contribute easily to your electricity bill. And our second idea is, we know that these devices produce detailed data about your house. So by collecting the heating data, the company can detect if there is a leakage problem in your windows, so that you can prevent this easily and earlier. And our last idea is that we wanted to encourage and empower the energy saving movement. We know that these devices can calculate the total energy savings in the neighborhood and give you a peer comparisons. So why not buy these smart contracts and join this movement? Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Hopefully this gave enough insight for Moritz to sleep at night. We are getting closer to the end, and now we will have our second to last pitch about digital ID. Let's welcome Ruth and Yandi.
Hi. So we believe that digital ID should be a human right. Without a digital ID, you would not be a part of a digital society. And we're Yandi, Ruth, Moritz and Paula there, and Santeri. Let me first ask you a question from the audience. Has any one of you used strong authentication in Finland? Can I see your hands? Almost all, that's what I expected. So currently, 98% of people living in Finland are using strong authentication as a means to access digital identity.
But Yandi, if nearly everyone is using it, what is the problem with it then?
I'm glad that you asked. Let me just give you a few examples. First, we have Herta, who's not very comfortable when she shops online because she doesn't know what is happening with her data. Second, we have Antti, who recently just got his email hacked after a data breach. And he doesn't know how to change it in all of the places.
So I see. Then the question arises, how might we design a digital ID that is inclusive and secure for everyone?
That's right. So our solution is to take back control over your digital data in order to monitor and modify your data sharing preferences.
How do we make this happen?
It's quite simple. We just need 2 ingredients. First is a one way to authenticate and a data nest where you can see and manage your data. Let's have a quick look of how we authenticate at the moment. So most Finns either use bank credentials or a mobile ID to access digital identity online. However, if your bank is down or your phone is out of battery, there's simply not much thing you can do. And this is exactly why the Finnish government is working on issuing a new physical ID card, and our solution will work with all of the methods mentioned here, and you can just choose whatever way you want to authenticate. Now we have the access part figured.
But Yandi, you also mentioned the data nest where you can manage your data preferences.
That's right. You want to tell the audience about this?
Sure. So there are 3 levels of data that can be shared. There's full information and anonymous. And then there's this new level which is called limited. This could be, for example, sharing your age instead of date of birth when buying alcohol.
And how does it work?
The process is quite simple. You use the digital ID card, mobile ID, or bank credentials to log in. After verifying yourself, this sort of pop-up screen appears. There, you can view which personal information you have given to a service and update your data preferences, data sharing preferences. In the data nest, you can also choose to delete your data. So you might wonder, is it really necessary that, for example, a sex shop knows your full date of birth or then your embarrassing middle name that even your friends don't know? Probably not. And there's even more. In the data nest, you are also informed if your shared personal info with the service has experienced a data breach. Based on that, you can update and change the info that has been leaked. So our digital ID is your fast lane to services in every situation with full control of your data. We believe that being fast or in control shouldn't be a choice, but a human right. What do you think?
Thank you.
Yandi and Ruth definitely gave us food for thought. Laura, do you have any questions for them?
Yes, I would have plenty of questions, and if you have questions as well, please send them to the Padlet. But now, last but not the least, we have Reti, investigating the aging population in Europe. Welcome.
It seems that I have turned this off. Okay, longer life expectancy and aging population are tensions that are foreseen in the very near future. And governments are getting very worried about the fact that we have decreasing workforce, increasing number of people who might need medical help, and then also we have this very fast pace of technological advancements. So how do these societies look like when most of the people are above 65 years old and being a centenarian becomes the norm? Our team decided to investigate this further. So when we look at global statistics, then in 2022, the elderly people formed around 10% of the total world's population. And in 2050, it is predicted to grow to 16%. But in Europe, the population is aging way faster. So, for example, in Estonia, the elderly people already form 17% of the total population, 1% more than the global prediction of the future. Additionally, Estonian statistics show that in 2034, the population will grow to 25% of elderly people in the total population, and in 2060, it will be 30%. Very big numbers. So, in order to be able to adapt to these unpredictable futures, we need to see signals in today and design for these tensions. In Estonia, the government released an action plan revolving around what to do when our population is aging. Some of the main points were that elderly people should be involved in culture organization and they should be encouraged to learn for a lifetime. Secondly, age groups should be integrated with each other. And thirdly, associations that bring together elderly people should be supported. So we went to Estonia to see this for ourselves. We visited by the Elderly Day Center Vikerkaar, Rainbow in English, and we asked them what does their daily life look like when it comes to this action plan and what could we use to design for a future based on what we learned there. So, some of the key themes that we noticed. Elderly people found it relevant that they had a community. Secondly, they needed assistance. And thirdly, they were concerned about service availability. Based on these themes, we made 3 future scenarios. Firstly, importance of community. So in the By the Elderly Day Center, it is actually an association where anyone in By the city can join when they're 65 plus years old, and they self-sustain, so they make their own events. They actually arrange also private doctor visits because they just like it more. And they do all sorts of hobby clubs such as handcrafting or cooking together. And when we thought about this and we thought about the Estonian action plan, we made a scenario where these communities could be organized within housing complexes, and young people could also be brought in to integrate age gaps and to promote organizing events for house communities. Secondly, need for assistance. So by the Elderly Club, members mentioned that they do get social workers' help every once in a while, but these social workers do not have enough resources to solve problems like cleaning the house. And therefore, we made this proposal that in the future, the governments could send out boxes similar to the Finnish kids box that includes all the necessary machines to clean the elderly people's homes and that they could control by themselves. And third, service availability. So in Paide, how people found out about services available to them was through the local newspapers and announcements on there, and then also like marketing campaigns. So at the moment in Paide, people can get mental health support for free. However, often these announcements were not so trustworthy. The elderly people were afraid of getting scammed, and they just didn't find the services that they needed in that moment. Therefore, the third final scenario that we see is that house complexes, again, like before mentioned, could also organize service listings available for the housing complex. And for that, there should be a platform. It could be an app, it could be some future version of a platform, where all of the house complex services are listed that are currently available for this community and based on the community's needs. So, I turned it off again. Yes, what do you think about this kind of futures? Would you see yourself living in them? Thank you.
Thank you for all the teams. Now is the last chance for you to ask your burning questions while we are welcoming all the teams on the stage to answer it. So can we have each person from each team to be on the stage?
We discussed as a group that there can be many external indicators that help people realize that they might be going through something that is not normal. What usually happens is that we tend to undermine the impact that these problems might have. For example, someone that could be experiencing depression might feel that they are just lonely. So the main concept of our solution is to have external indicators to help people understand that what they're going through it's hard enough. One other solution could be to integrate these mental health checkups in other healthcare checkups. For example, whenever you visit a doctor. Another solution we discussed is to use smart watches or rings and integrate the amount of sleep people are getting and the amount of movement they are making to complement the other feelings that this person may have. So yeah, there's a lot to go on that round.
Thank you. For the energy saving group, if your 3 ideas help people save money on their electricity bill, how would you encourage users to use also less energy?
Okay, so first of all, thank you for your question, but we only have 1 idea, not 3 ideas. And our focus here is not to force people anything. We don't want to force people to use less energy. We want them to keep the comfort that they are having, but with the help of the thermostats, they can just continue with their lives like usual, and the device do all the hard work. It reduces the consumption during the peak hours, and everything is done automatically, so people don't need to get their hand dirty on anything.
Cool.
Digital ID.
Yes.
Have you considered utilizing blockchain technology for your idea?
Yes, we did, and we could probably talk quite a lot about that. Maybe make it short. We think the good thing of blockchain we could use for our solution would be using the decentralized service, but there's still this problem with blockchain that you still have to make a connection to the real world, and that won't help us. So actually, we would just use decentralized service, but still have a connection to like real world certificate issuers, for example, like the uni giving you your like student ID and not just the blockchain giving you the ID. So in the end, you can always have to trust the uni and not just the blockchain.
Thank you very much for the answer. Now for the aging population, do you see that information technology is suitable solutions for the elderly?
The future we are planning for is, let's say, 20 years from now. So we assume that people by then are more tech savvy. That's the assumption we are basing our solution on.
Thank you all for your answers. You are free to.
Thanks.
Thank you. These past hours have definitely given us insight and food for thought for the current issues, big and small. I'm already planning on how my game skin will look like. Paula, after hearing the presentations, are you ready to save the planet?
I don't know about myself, but I'm pretty convinced that at least Emilia, Juan, Merika, Maria, and Nisha seem to be equipped to tackle the task.
I think that we can all agree on that we shouldn't wait for the crisis to be solved, but take action and try right now.
Once again, we want to thank you to all the teams and everybody here in Dipoli, and also our YouTube audience. Just a few practicalities before closures. We have the after party in Pub Ludwig. Sorry, I don't know how to say that. All the IDBM people will stay here and clean up the venues, and we'll go there afterward.
See you all there. And
thank you very much.
Thank you all.